What if I told you that one night, without a single sword being drawn, the most feared army in the world was utterly destroyed by an invisible force? This is not legend. It is one of the most dramatic and awe-inspiring moments in ancient history, a story preserved in sacred texts, whispered across centuries, and remembered as the night an angel descended upon the earth. Stay with me, because this true story might just change how you see divine power and protection. If you believe in miracles or want to, this is a story you can't afford to miss. In the year 701 BC, the world trembled under the weight of a single empire, Assyria. Towering cities fell like sandcastles before its armies. Its king, Sennacherib, saw himself not just as a ruler, but as an extension of the gods themselves. His empire was a machine of destruction, and its next target was Jerusalem. Judah, a small kingdom holding fast to its ancient covenant with the God of Israel, was surrounded, isolated, and terrified. The ground shook with the march of 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. This was not just war, it was annihilation on the horizon. Inside Jerusalem, fear was tangible. The streets were quiet, but hearts thundered with uncertainty. Mothers whispered prayers. Fathers stood helpless at the city walls. The people had seen city after city fall to Assyria's wrath. Lachish, Arpad, Hamath, none had been spared. Judah had been the last stronghold of Yahweh worship in the land. Would it now meet the same fate? Would the God of Israel remain silent? Faith hung in the air like a candle flickering in a storm. King Hezekiah, a descendant of David, stood against the tide. He was not a warrior king in the traditional sense, but his strength came from somewhere deeper, unshakable trust in the divine. He had led reforms, cleansed the temple, torn down idols. He had placed everything, his crown, his people, his own life, into the hands of God. Yet even he felt the gravity of the moment. Behind the palace walls, his advisors argued for alliances, for surrender. But Hezekiah chose a different path. He chose prayer. At the Assyrian front, confidence reigned. Generals drank wine and celebrated a victory they hadn't yet earned. Sennacherib's chief spokesman, Rabshakeh, mocked Judah's God publicly, comparing him to the failed gods of conquered nations. "No one can resist us," they declared. "No God has stood against Assyria." It was arrogance at its peak, words that history would soon remember with a chill. Their laughter would echo in the valley, only to be silenced forever. Hezekiah climbed to the temple. He carried the blasphemous letter from Sennacherib, the ultimatum meant to crush his will. But instead of fear, he brought it before the altar. With trembling hands and a broken heart, he spread the scroll before the presence of God. He didn't ask for glory. He didn't ask for vengeance. He asked only for deliverance, not for his sake, but so the world would know who truly rules heaven and earth. This prayer was not ordinary. It was history-altering. Meanwhile, a prophet emerged. Isaiah, known for visions and unfiltered truth, entered the royal court with fire in his eyes. "Thus says the Lord," he thundered. "He will not enter this city. He will not shoot an arrow here. I will defend this city for my sake and for David's sake." These were not mere words. They were divine decrees. In a time when hope was a whisper, Isaiah roared a promise. The prophet's voice became a shield around Jerusalem, echoing louder than the Assyrian war drums. As night fell, two worlds prepared to clash, not with swords or flames, but with faith and divine justice. The most powerful army on earth settled into their tents, dreaming of conquest. They did not know that an unseen presence was already among them. A celestial decree had been issued. An angel stood ready. The clock ticked toward midnight. History stood still, holding its breath. The night descended with an eerie silence across the valley, the kind of silence that speaks louder than war drums. In the Assyrian camp, celebration gave way to uneasy sleep. Veterans of 100 battles laid down their weapons, unaware it would be their last night. The wind stopped. The air felt thick, almost watchful. Something was stirring, something unseen yet undeniable. Horses neighed nervously. War dogs refused to rest. Sentinels looked to the stars, and though they saw nothing, their souls felt everything. Something ancient, something holy, had stepped onto the battlefield. In the temple, Isaiah fell to his knees in deep prayer. And then it happened. A radiant presence not of this world filled the sacred space. The angel of the Lord stood before him, a being not bound by flesh or bone, but forged of divine fire. This was not the soft-winged cherub of art. This was judgment incarnate, armed with a sword of light. The voice of the Almighty thundered across realms, "Go, defend my city." At that command, the angel moved, not with sound, not with light, but with a presence so mighty that even creation held its breath. The Assyrians never saw it coming. Not a single trumpet was blown, no sword clashed against shield. Death came silently. One by one the soldiers fell, not in agony, but as if their spirits were gently taken. Eyes still open, hands still clutching weapons, yet lifeless. The angel passed like wind through their ranks, and wherever it moved, life ceased. There was no chaos, no time for defense, no resistance. It was divine justice executed with surgical precision. 185,000 souls met their end, not by man, but by the will of heaven. Sennacherib woke to a nightmare. Stepping out of his tent, he saw what no general should ever see. Rows of still, cold bodies where life had once roared. His guards lay dead. His commanders lay dead. His royal captains dead. It wasn't a battle. It was a cleansing. His knees gave way. This king who mocked the God of Israel now whispered his name in fear. He stumbled back, eyes wide, heart racing, mind broken. His empire had suffered a loss no sword could have inflicted, and he knew. This was no plague. This was the hand of a living God. At sunrise, Jerusalem woke to a strange silence. The watchmen on the walls rubbed their eyes in disbelief. The valley was still. The Assyrian banners no longer waved. The fires were out. And then they saw the truth. An entire army destroyed. Word spread like wildfire through the city. People climbed rooftops, flooded the walls, cried, shouted, praised. What no man could have done, their God had done in a single night. Hezekiah stood on the ramparts, Isaiah beside him. Neither spoke. No words were enough. Only tears, awe, and silence could mark such a victory. The people of Judah erupted in celebration. Spontaneous songs burst from every home. Children danced in the streets. Men fell to their knees, thanking the God who had spared them. In the temple, the Levites sang psalms of deliverance. Hezekiah led a solemn procession, carrying a great offering of gratitude. He looked upon the same altar where he had once wept, and now he rejoiced. His voice echoed through the temple. "Who is like our God, who fights not with weapons of war, but with fire from heaven?" It was a national rebirth, a spiritual awakening forged in the crucible of faith. But not all saw the miracle with joy. In distant palaces, kings who had once feared Sennacherib now marveled in silence. Envoys were dispatched. Gifts were sent. Babylon, Egypt, and even former enemies now looked to Judah with newfound respect. A tiny kingdom that had no earthly hope had defeated the mightiest army through divine power. Judah became more than a place. It became a testimony. Proof that when men kneel in prayer, angels rise in battle. And the world watched, wondering if the God of Israel might still be watching, still intervening, still defending his people. In Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire, the news arrived not with trumpets, but with trembling messengers and broken soldiers. The gates opened to receive what remained of a once invincible army. Chariots were abandoned along the way. Men walked like ghosts, their eyes hollow with trauma. Sennacherib entered the city not in triumph, but in disgrace. The people looked on in silence. Behind closed doors, whispers turned into rumors. The king had lost not just an army, but his divine favor. In a land that worshipped power, such a loss could not be ignored. The mighty had fallen, and fear now gripped the throne. In the inner halls of the palace, scribes were given new orders. "You will not write of angels. You will not mention the God of the Jews." This was a plague, a disease, a misfortune. History, the king decreed, would be rewritten. But even as they etched lies into stone, the truth leaked like light through cracks. Merchants carried tales. Diplomats whispered the truth behind veils. The Assyrian gods had failed, and one God had proven supreme. That knowledge, once sown, could not be uprooted. Even fear could not silence the awe in men's hearts. The story had already taken flight. Back in Jerusalem, Hezekiah governed with newfound authority. The miraculous deliverance had strengthened not just the kingdom's safety, but its soul. Reforms swept across the land. Pagan altars were torn down. False idols were destroyed. The people, once wavering in faith, now stood united under one banner, Yahweh, the Lord of hosts. Hezekiah did not use this moment for personal glory. Instead, he pointed constantly to the divine. "This city is not mine," he said. "It belongs to the God who saved us." His humility and victory became a model for rulers who would come long after. The prophet Isaiah, now revered by all, continued to speak with unmatched clarity. His visions expanded beyond Jerusalem. He spoke of a Messiah, of a world at peace, of swords turned into plowshares. People gathered daily to hear his words, writing them carefully on scrolls to preserve them. His voice, once ignored, now carried the weight of fulfilled prophecy. The miracle had validated his mission, and he warned them gently, "This victory is not the end, but a sign. Do not forget what the Lord has done. Do not trade your faith for comfort." A prophet's fire burned still. Years passed. The people prospered. Children were raised on stories of the night an angel walked through the valley. Songs were written. Festivals remembered the day the city was spared. Mothers whispered the tale at bedtime. Warriors etched it onto their shields. "The Lord defends his own" became a battle cry across Judah. The story transcended its generation. It became identity, legacy, prophecy. Even skeptics couldn't ignore the transformation in the people. Faith, once fragile, had become a fortress, and at the center of it all was the unshakable memory of that divine night. But peace would not last forever. After Hezekiah's passing, his son Manasseh rose to power. Unlike his father, he reopened the doors to idolatry. Foreign gods returned to Judah. Temples to the Lord were neglected. The miracle, so vivid just decades before, began to fade in the minds of a new generation. Isaiah, now old and weary, warned them again, but his voice was drowned by the noise of a kingdom chasing pleasure. It was a tragic turn, from fire-forged faith to forgotten glory. Yet the story remained, buried in scrolls and memories, waiting to be remembered again. And remembered it would be. Centuries later, as Jerusalem faced new threats, Babylonian sieges, Roman occupations, revolts, and ruin, the tale would resurface. When the people had nothing left, they held on to the past. They would gather in synagogues and whisper, "Remember the angel." When hope was a distant light, they kindled it with ancient fire. "The Lord has not abandoned us," they said. "He intervened once, he will do it again." That memory, etched in faith, not just history, carried them through the darkest nights. It wasn't just a story, it was proof. And even today, thousands of years later, the tale still lives. It is told in temples, in churches, in books, in hearts. Archaeologists uncover inscriptions that echo its truth. Historians marvel at the silence in Assyrian records. Faithful readers find the account in 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, and Isaiah. And somewhere on Mount Zion, where the enemy once plotted, people now stand and pray. Some say you can still feel it, the presence, the echo of wings, the memory of a God who hears. It's not just legend, it's legacy. The night God moved, and the world stood still. If you believe this story carries a power deeper than history, if you feel that stirring in your own heart, then let it awaken something inside you. Let it remind you that in your greatest battles, you are not alone. There is a God who still sees, still hears, still acts. And sometimes when we least expect it, he sends angels. If this moved you, share it. Let others hear. Let faith rise again. Because the same God who defended Jerusalem is still writing stories. And maybe, just maybe, the next one will be yours. What happened that night outside the walls of Jerusalem was not simply the end of a siege. It was the revelation of a truth that echoes through eternity. When human strength fails, divine power takes over. 185,000 soldiers fell without a single sword raised by man. A king's prayer became the catalyst for one of history's most profound miracles. And the message is timeless. God hears, God sees, and when his people call on him in faith, he answers with power that cannot be explained, only experienced. This is not just ancient history, it's an invitation to trust when you're surrounded, to stand firm when you're outnumbered, to believe when fear whispers lies. You may not be facing an Assyrian army, but you may be surrounded by battles of another kind. Grief, depression, anxiety, loss, addiction, doubt. The God who sent his angel to defend Jerusalem is the same God who stands ready to fight for you. Call on him, pray like Hezekiah, and believe that in the silence of your darkest night, heaven might already be preparing to move. Don't let this story remain just a story. Let it be a turning point. Let it spark something in your heart. If you've wandered from faith, come home. If you've grown cold, rekindle the fire. If you've been waiting for a sign, consider this it. The walls of your life may be under siege, but the God of angel armies still fights for his people. Today can be the day everything changes, not because of what you can do, but because of who he is. Choose faith. Choose surrender. Choose Jesus. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's struggling. Pass on this hope to someone standing at the edge. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel and follow Jesus. Not just with words, but with your whole life. Let's build a community rooted in truth, in Scripture, and in unshakable faith. Every story we tell here is meant to point you to the one who never changes and never fails. This isn't just content. This is your call to rise. Right now, wherever you are, take a moment. Close your eyes. Remember the silence of that night, the stillness, the power, and then say this simple prayer. Lord, fight for me, defend me, lead me. I trust in you. These words may feel small, but when spoken in faith, they move mountains. Let your story be next. Let your breakthrough begin. Don't just watch this, respond. Let the same God who moved for Hezekiah move in your life starting today. My name is Oliver. I'm honored to walk with you through stories like these. Stories that are more than just history. They're reminders, anchors, warnings, and promises. And they matter because you matter. If you've made it this far, I want you to know, I see you, and more importantly, God sees you. This isn't the end of the story. It's a new chapter, one filled with purpose, courage, and light. Until next time, stay rooted, stay faithful, and never forget, you are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are not powerless. And if God is for you, nothing can stand against you. I'll see you in the next video. God bless you, always.